Welcome to the Coach Toolbox. This podcast is for coaches, leaders, and learners at all levels in organizations and in all walks of life. Here, you will get just-in-time learning that is research-based and practice-focused. The goal is personal and professional mastery. And now, our session today.
A warm hello, and it's my pleasure to welcome Sailaja Manacha to our episode today. Sailaja has been on our show earlier where she's spoken about teenager troubles and insights for parents. But this morning we have her with us as the author of a leadership book called Step Up. So we're going to talk a little bit about this book, which is really making a big impact in our market. So we're going to talk about this as a leadership book. Sai, for those of you who may not know her, is a psychotherapist. She's an awesome leadership coach and now the author of this book, Step Up. So Sai, we're very excited to have you with us. Welcome.
Thank you, Ajay.
So you've spoken to our listeners earlier on managing teenagers and something like that. But today our focus is really about this amazing book, Step Up. So tell us a little bit about this book and what got you writing this book.
Sure. So Step Up is a book written for women and leading. That's the core topic. For many years now, almost 10 years, I've been running women-only transformation and change groups, Ajay, here in Bangalore City. And as I ran those groups, I began noticing a lot of really smart, brilliant, bright women driving their careers with the brakes on. Stuckness with negotiating, better compensation at work, stuckness with not being in the level of the hierarchy that they believed they needed to be, but they weren't. Sometimes an inability to get through to their male bosses, to their teams, and getting the recognition for the work they deserved. Sometimes stuckness with just navigating very sticky situations at home and almost needing to give up their dreams and aspirations. Stuckness with not having their voice heard because they simply didn't have the communication competencies that they required at work in order to make an impact. So I was just seeing a lot of this, and I realized as I worked with those groups over a period of many months. So it wasn't a training program; it was a group that met again and again for many months and sometimes over a year. I noticed that these women, when they received an understanding of their own inner map, their barriers that were holding them back, and when they received tools to move beyond those barriers, some of them made some amazing transformations in their life, and they were really going for the stars, right? And this really began to show me that the typical skills-based training for women in leading or skills-based work that organization was doing was not enough, and that one needed to go into the psychological piece and start there, because that's really the foundation for most of us as human beings. Our behavior comes from there. And so when we go into that psychological piece and women get that inner map and the tools, then there's really nothing that stops them. And so this learning is what I wanted to put sort of together. And that's how I thought I would write these books, just so that more people could access this work.
That's so awesome to hear, and I like what you said, that there are so many women who are driving their careers with the brakes on. What an awesome statement that is. So you're talking about this book being able to provide an inner map and some psychological tools. Tell us a little bit more about the practice-based format of this book. What's your thinking there?
Sure. So, Ajay, there are a lot of leadership books, available right now. Yeah. So, and a lot of them, of course, are written from a very Western lens. And a lot of them are really talking about the situation of and almost a crisis that we have around women in leadership, in the corporate world, not just in India, but all over the world. Step Up is a book that combines leadership and management practices with psychology, because that's really my sweet spot. As a psychologist and a therapist, I bring in that lens very powerfully into the book, not just management and leadership practices. And I also wanted to write a book, Ajay, that can be used like a workbook, right? Mm-hmm. It's really like a toolkit, that you can have at your desk or on your bedside, and work through it week after week. It's not to be read like a piece of fiction over a weekend, because it's a very reflective practices based book, which means there are exercises, there are lots of stories that people can connect with and identify themselves in the book, because many of those stories resonate so much. That's what readers are already telling me. As you work through those exercises, take some of those ideas, use it at work and in life, begin to see the benefit of it. I think this book is therefore meant to shift your practices. Because Ajay, we've all become what we have practiced. Even today, who we are is what we have practiced for years and years, right? So our practices need to change for us to change and transform an aspect of our life. Therefore, a practice-based book, because we are what we have practiced.
How amazing is that? A practice-based book which combines the best of leadership and management and psychology. That's awesome. So how can women at different stages of their career, use this book?
In my work with women and groups and leaders, it has got revealed to me that there are some repetitive patterns, Ajay, that a lot of women are showing up in the workplace with those patterns. And I talk about those patterns in the book, and I call them reds. Yeah, because they stop us. They stop us from moving ahead effectively. So these reds are, just so, there's a whole list of them, as a chapter in the book. And a lot of, whether it's mid-career or senior women who are already leaders, are identifying with some of these reds. Yeah, the need to be pleasing, our lack of capacity to say what we need to say. Yeah, sometimes there is a pattern of passivity, which means that we are waiting for people to recognize us, waiting for people to see our wonderful, stupendous work. Yeah, even though we don't want to talk about it, waiting for opportunities to be dropped into our plate. And none of these actually happen. So passivity is a killer when it comes to moving ahead in your career. Or there are patterns connected with perfection. Yeah. And so we just don't get going. We don't put our hand up. We don't say yes to things because we're waiting to be perfect, know it all, have it all, have only the best statement, the most knowledgeable statement come out of our mouth. Because many, many women especially are not willing to just be playing with something because of this whole drive to getting it right. Yeah. So a lot of these patterns I'm talking about, I find women in mid-careers as well as senior, women leaders are already relating to these patterns. There are a lot of senior women who are reading, who are very deeply connecting with a few chapters connected with developing your leadership presence. Yeah, leadership presence is a mind-body approach. At least I take a mind-body approach to it. And so the book talks about how presence fuels tremendous awareness, and we need that awareness for any kind of leadership journey. There is a wonderful chapter on the book called Taking Care of What You Care About. And I find a lot of leaders hitting their 40s and later than 40s are very much relating to that piece on the book, Ajay, because we must ask ourselves what we deeply care about, personally and professionally, because we are finite and time is finite. Yeah. So where do we put our time and energy and our commitment to is such an important question. Otherwise, we can spread ourselves thin, being very busy bodies, but not really feeling a sense of satisfaction. So I find there are different things in the book for different stages of leadership. And people are relating to these different aspects depending on where they are.
How nice. You've been saying that this book is especially for women. So how would men listeners benefit from, reading this book? But what's in it for us?
This book came out in November, in the early week of November. And this has been the happiest surprise for me, Ajay, that so many men are reading this book. I've had leaders buying this book for their team, and their team incidentally just consists of a whole lot of men because there aren't so many women in senior leadership positions. Even some of the endorsements on the book are from men who are emphatically saying that this is just a book for anybody, not just for leaders. So, Sai, I don't know why you've written it only for women leaders, but this has been the happiest surprise for me, honestly. And I say even to groups that I'm speaking to that I agree that this is a book for everybody, because a lot of the men are connecting with some of those patterns that I'm talking about in the book. And I say, yes, it is for anybody. And many men can relate to some of those patterns too. It's just that I've held a women's lens to it only because these patterns are highly prevalent in men. I'm sorry, in women than in men. And therefore, I talk about the women's lens only because I think women have received these sets of messages in our upbringing and our conditioning hell of a lot more than men. And therefore, I have found it helpful to hold a women's lens. But of course, I think it is immensely valuable even to a man, because finally, the book and psychology is about the human being, right? And a human being, men and women are not that different. Yeah, we have some differences, but that's about it. So given that it's about the human being and about, how we've shaped ourselves as human beings and shaped our behavior, I feel it is also extremely relevant to men. And a lot of endorsers are senior leaders, endorsers of the book are senior leaders who've read this and are saying that they deeply resonate with the content.
How cool is that? That is really, really good. So it's not just a book for women, though it's been written with that lens in mind. It's a leadership and management book, which combines the lens of psychology. That's the sweet spot that you're talking about. So just about everybody who's interested in leadership will benefit from it.
Yes.
So since the launch of the book, we've seen that you've had some amazing live events and interactions around the book. Tell us a little bit about that.
I think one event that I particularly loved and found inspiring was, an event that we had at Bangalore International Center. It had some really senior leaders on stage. We had Arundhati Ghosh, who is director of the India Foundation of Arts. We had Rohini Srivatsa, who is the CTO of Microsoft. Reed Abraham, who's an Arjuna awardee and a world champion athlete. And I just found the stories and narratives that these leaders brought to the stage was just so inspiring and electrifying. And all they spoke about was not so much about barriers, because these are all leaders who move beyond barriers. Yeah, but they spoke about what stepping up moments meant to them and highlighted some fabulous learnings for all of us around what stepping up can mean and what stepping up means for women leaders of the future. Because I think we're leading in very chaotic times, Ajay, where there's so much of conflict, not just in India, but even in other parts of the world. We're leading in times of partisan groups, of exclusion, where nobody's talking enough about diversity and inclusion at all, of all kinds of inclusion, not just gender I'm talking about. So I think these are very tough times that leaders are leading in. And therefore, we discuss what is the value of feminine principles in leadership style and what would happen when we bring those principles alive in our leading. And some of these leaders spoke stunningly about these aspects, in those events. And then we had some lovely storytelling about wisdom stories from all over the world and stories from time immemorial that capture what stepping up means. Yeah, not just for women, but for any human being. So I've just been immensely satisfied and grateful for all those who participated in these events, both the leaders and contributors on stage, as well as the audience that just brought some wonderful questions and very touched with these events. So I'm just having deep gratitude that through the medium of this book, I am getting to be in these conversations and grow from it myself.
How amazing is that? So you've launched this amazing book. You've had this series of live events, which have just gone off so well. So what's next? What else are you going to do around this book?
So there are two things that there's one thing that I'm already doing, Ajay, which is taking the book into organizations who are ready to have me in the book. Organizations who have a culture of reflection and discussion and books are very happy to sort of have the book and me as part of a talk series or a mini workshop for a group of people. So this is something that I've already begun. But the second thing that's coming up, which I want to integrate the book with, is the Step Up course, which is launching on the 1st of March, 2020. The Step Up course has been around since 2018, and I've already done 4 batches, open courses. Yeah, what I'm calling batches are just publicly announced courses. People from India and other parts of the world register. It's a 4-month course that runs over a period of 4 months, which has a lot of the content of the Step Up book also in the course, and it has more content also in the course. Like there's video content, worksheets, reflective questions. There are 8 live calls where we all get on to calls and learn together. So I've already run several batches of it, and the 2020 batch is coming up on the 1st of March. And now I'm going to integrate the book also with the course, because earlier there was only the course and I didn't have the book. But now, there will be the book integrated with the course. And I really see it as a very rich experience of 4 months of deep dive into yourself and who you are and who you can become as a leader.
Wow, that sounds awesome. And there are some listeners who are probably wondering in terms of the details for this course. So we will put up a link to the book in the description of this episode. And we'll also put up a link to the course in the description box. Sai's email ID will be there, so you can reach out to her directly if you'd like to get further information about the book or the course, or if you'd like to access her to hold that event in your organization. Now, Sai, you mentioned that you have offered this course previously. So what are some insights and what is feedback? What is people's experience of having attended this online course?
The book and the course hold a central premise and a core principle, Ajay. And that core principle is that the self of the leader is where we lead from. Yeah. And what is the self? We are an amalgamation and culmination of decades of practice, messages from our family of origin, difficult experiences that have shaped us, and they've shaped us psychologically. They've even shaped our bodies, and I very much take a mind-body approach, even, in the book, and the course talks about it. So that's the core principle. So what leadership can be there without making self-awareness is the cornerstone of our leadership. Who am I as a leader? And how is it that I'm leading, and what has shaped me, and what needs to now change in the shape is, the reflective aspect of this course. And that's really what this is about. So a lot of people who've been on the courses, Ajay, are really talking about how deeply focused they have become on themselves for those 4 months, which they didn't have before, because we're often very outside focused. Yeah. And this is a course that takes you inward, really asking you to think about what has shaped you and what are you continuing to practice, which is not very effective in your leading. And therefore, what are the new greens? Yeah. Like I talk about the reds before, I now talk about the greens. What are those greens which allow us to move forward? And what are those green practices and tools that we need to start integrating into ourselves as leaders, so that we're better with our colleagues, so that we're leading our teams better, so that we are holding bigger goals and bigger promises that we deserve to hold, so that we're making bold declarations about who we are, how we will lead, and what we will do in the world. And the course is about all of this. So insights that people have had are about all of these aspects, Ajay, what they need to change, how they can integrate some of the tools that the course is giving them so that they can play a bigger game than what they're playing currently. Because that's really what leading is about, right? It's about expansion. It's about holding bigger promises for our teams and organizations. And it's about playing a bigger game in whatever dimension we want to. Yeah, because the course is not saying that this is what is bigger. No, you decide what is bigger for you, but the course provides you the holding and the tools to begin to play that bigger game and to begin to influence the public identity that you want to hold about yourself.
And just to clarify, this is not a course for just women. This is a course for anyone who's interested in developing their own leadership. And frankly, from what you say, in just developing themselves as human beings, as people and professionals.
I'm so glad you asked that question, Ajay, because it gives me an opportunity to clarify. No, it's a course that is meant for women. Yeah, because Step Up, the book and the course very much hold a gender lens, for sure. So the course is a course on women leadership.
Okay, so guys can't apply for the course.
That's right. And I've just been being badgered so much since last year because, even though Step Up was an open program and I was announcing it publicly, there were some client organizations that wanted it to be run inside their organizations. And so I did that. I ran 4-month batches of only women groups, but from certain businesses, in organizations. Sure. And then after that, I've been badgered by a whole lot of men in that organization saying, please take our men and run this for them. And I'm saying, you know what? The content is so much gendered and speaking to women that I can't really do that. But really, I think I'm very enthused now to begin to think of a course like this for everybody, because I have just been receiving so many questions from men around, taking even, the men in their teams and organizations and putting them through something like this. So I will think about it.
All right. So that's good. So we don't get left out. But I'm also very appreciative of the fact that you have a very specific focus. And sometimes when we try dilute focus, it really benefits nobody. But if the course has a specific profile, I think the richness and the depth and the focus of discussions would be really very, very helpful for the target audience for whom the book has been written.
Yeah, I find the book is probably something that any person can pick up and read. But the course is definitely focused on women leadership. And it also is focused on having people with at least 7 or 8 years plus experience, Ajay, because the conversations on the course and the content is something that appeals to aspiring women leaders and existing women leaders, because people who are in the early stages of their career, 1, 2, and 3 years experience, I find they don't fully relate to the content of this course because they have different concerns in their work life at that stage of their career. And this course is not addressing those concerns. This course is only addressing expansion concerns, stepping up concerns. And so I have found that people with at least 7 or 8 years plus experience benefit the most from the course.
All right. So we're going to wish your course amazing success. And we're also going to wish the fact that it does so well, you're going to be flooded with requests to do the same thing or something similar for men. And that will be awesome to attend and to be part of also. So as we bring our conversation to a close, Sai, what are some things that you'd like to sort of share with us in closing, either about the book or the upcoming course?
I think more than the course, it's really an overall message from me as a people facilitator and someone who's worked in transformation. And I think the message that I want to leave a listener is be a designer of your life and work. As human beings, we bring tremendous agency to bear on any situation, and we forget that, yeah? And I tell people, don't be the clay who always is shaped, be the hands that shape it, right? Because we are so capable, we have so much potential, and yet we play the waiting game, waiting for things to just happen. And all I'm saying here is be the hands that shape the clay, be a designer of your life and work. And that's the best way to step up in whatever dimension you want to step up in your life.
How nice to be the designer of your life and work, and not just the clay all the time, but the hands that shape the clay. I think that in itself is such an amazing and inspiring thought. So thank you so much, Sai, for being with us. We wish your book tremendous success because it is touching lives, changing hearts, and developing people. We wish the course tremendous success. And as I said, the details of these courses will be there in the description box. So as listeners, please feel free to check out the details and reach out to Sai if you have any further requests. So Sai, thank you once again for being with us.
Thank you so much, Ajay. It's just a blessing to start my day with such an energizing conversation. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
And that's it for today. Thank you for listening. Please connect with us on coachtoolbox@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to follow, subscribe, and review this channel. Details of our ICF-approved coach training programs and our services as executive coaches and coaching supervisors are on www.globalcoachtrust.org. See you in our next session.